This is Matt Windman, theater critic for AM New York, and you're listening to Dave Gone By on UNC Radio.
On the 10th annual Total Theater Tony Show, Dave Lefkowitz here talking with another theater critic. He is the chief critic of AM New York. That's that free newspaper you see all over Manhattan. In fact, it's apparently the most circulated newspaper in all of New York City. He's also a member of the Drama Desk and the New York Drama Critics Circle, which means he's a Tony voter. So please welcome Matt Windman to talk about Best Book of a Musical. Hi, Matt.
Hi there.
Hi, Matt. How did you like the season as a whole?
Wasn't that much of a fan of it, really.
Expound, please.
Not as successful or impressive as the other recent seasons.
You're not the first person I've heard that from. There were a lot of new openings, more than 40 new shows, but that can also mean it's because shows are closing quicker.
Well, we haven't actually seen that many closings. Some shows that you would actually think would have closed just kind of hung in there, many of which have actually turned out to get quite a few nominations. It's the season where there's not just any towering favorite like Book of Mormon, but really none where there's any show where people are kind of lining up for or against. I really, for instance, am not a fan of Gentleman's Guide at all.
Oh, okay. Well, that's one of the nominees for... Well, why don't we get into that as we do the Best Book of a Musical? Because the nominees are Aladdin, which has a book by Chad Begwelin. Sorry if I'm mispronouncing that. Beautiful, the Carole King musical, with a book by Douglas McGrath. Bullets Over Broadway, which Woody Allen wrote based on the movie that he did. And Gentleman's Guide to Love and Murder by Robert L. Friedman. What's your problem with Gentleman's Guide?
I don't think it's very good at all.
Okay.
I just don't see the appeal of it. I've sat through it twice now. I went back as a voter hoping in earnest that I just didn't get it the first time.
Okay.
And this time, okay, it's an old-fashioned operetta. I know what to expect this time, so now I can go with it. And then I'm there. We go through that cheesy opening of everyone saying, oh, this is so shocking. I'm like, what is it? And then, all right, then there's 5 minutes of dialogue, that terrible song between the old lady and Monty. The score isn't good, and the book isn't funny. I would consider probably the book stronger, at least, than the score. From at least a predictions point of view, I imagine that Gentleman's Guide will win this award. But that also says a lot about how unimpressive the other nominees
are. Let me ask you a quick question. Did you ever see or like the Alec Guinness film Kind Hearts and Coronets, on which the musical is based?
I'm afraid I haven't.
Because I would have been curious to see if you thought that movie, which is brilliant, was funny. Maybe it's just not your type of thing, and the story is obviously pretty much the same. I was just curious about that. But what about the other nominees then? If you are not into Gentleman's Guide, which of the other three would you or will you vote for?
At this point, I would say that I'm most likely to vote for Beautiful, which is, in terms of its book at least, its book is probably the worst part of it.
Okay.
But it's still confident. And Beautiful is a pretty decent show. It has this kind of sanitized aura to it, where you just keep getting the feeling that they're really being reductive about the characters upon which it is based, which it really is. But Beautiful is still very entertaining, moving at times, and well put together in a very conservative kind of way. I don't think it will win this award. In a season where there is no favorite whatsoever, and you have a musical like Gentleman's Guide, which I think has absolutely no commercial appeal whatsoever, especially in terms of whether it can national tour or not, I think that we're going to see a lot of the award being given out all over the place. I don't think that we're going to see one show dominate. I would think that Beautiful will probably win Best Musical, and as a consequence of that, the other shows like After Midnight or Gentleman's Guide
can I ask? It was fairly roundly snubbed, although I really liked Bullets Over Broadway quite a lot. You don't seem a fan of that show either.
Oh, absolutely not. But while I would prefer sitting through that again over Gentleman's Guide, Bullets also suffered from huge letdown syndrome. Here you have this fantastic property on which to base a musical, perfect in every way for expanding it into musical comedy, and they botched it. And I feel like there was just a huge amount of hubris on the part of its creators. The decision to not use an original score was catastrophic to its success. I do know the film upon which it's based. I don't think that anything interesting or worthwhile was added in the transition from screen to stage. If this were an original musical, it probably would win Best Book.
Oh.
So I shouldn't even say that because there's so much mixed feelings right now about Woody Allen the person that I can't imagine, honestly, voters giving him the award right now. And he's also been so critical and condescending in the interviews when he talks about Broadway that I really can't imagine the voters giving it to him. Not that I, honest personally, would care about that, but and he also did a god-awful play 2 years ago, relatively speaking.
Yeah, that was bad.
Saying that voters matters, but clearly he does not have a taste for writing for stage right now or a wish to. And personally, I just found Bullets just a complete letdown in every way.
Now let's go into the complete opposite. Let's talk about your very, very favorite show of the whole season, on or off, or even off Broadway, Matt Windman from AM New York.
Well, that would be Fun Home.
Fun Home at the Public Theater?
Oh, yeah.
Why was that so wonderful? And by the way, it will be coming to Broadway next spring, so what was so great about it?
That hasn't been officially announced.
Oh, okay.
I imagine that all things considered it will, but it wasn't even enough of a smash or critical success of the public, although it did get good reviews. But tickets were still always available.
Right. It's also a Pulitzer nominee, which doesn't hurt.
If it had won the Pulitzer, that also would have helped. But it did win the Drama Critic Circle Award for whatever that's worth.
But tell us very quickly why you really liked Fun Home.
It was the most well-put-together, moving, extraordinary musical of this year. The most character-focused, the most innovative. It had an exceptional score.
Well, yeah, that pretty much explains it. I guess you kind of wish that were up for a Tony this year, yeah.
I keep thinking back to the song Tease, where, you know, how the main female protagonist is played by three different girls, and this is introduced by the oldest of the three, and it goes back to her youngest self, talking about how she saw once a butch lesbian truck driver enter a diner, and she's fascinated by how she looks, by the ring of keys on her. I thought that was one of the most brilliant moments I've ever seen in a musical, one of the most original kinds of songs. This song there was no sexual basis to it whatsoever, but you could feel this character coming into her own, so fascinated. It's really one of the most beautiful moments I've ever seen in any show.
Wow. Well, I guess it is something to look forward to if Fun Home does make it to Broadway next spring. But certainly everyone should look forward to reading Matt Windman's reviews in AM New York. What are you doing Tony night, by the way? Are you watching at home? Are you going to be in the press room? What?
I'm afraid I'm going to be at a wedding that night, so I'll have to find out what happens after the fact or on my iPhone.
Wow. Okay, well, congratulations on that, too, of course. Enjoy the wedding, and we'll all be enjoying the Tonys and your writing for AM New York. Matt Windman, thank you so much for being in the neighborhood.